Cappy, do we have any new patrons?
Yes, yeah, we have Schmuck Johnson, Zaire, Kagura, Astra.
So it's Kagura Spotter and Astra Anarchista. So we have a
Yes.
left com, an anarchist, a Turkic person.
Yeah,
I don't even know what Schmuck Johnson is.
Schmuck is from Turkey, I think.
By way of Florida.
Yeah.
And he also denies the Armenian genocide. Moving on. And then there's Zaire. That's all I know. Like, I was kind of rage baiting him a little bit in the chat, but he's like, I don't recognize that. I was like, oh, I kind of let it go, but I don't know. We may have people in our Discord. If you are a Armenian genocide believer, you got to hit the link tree, go into our Discord, and defend reality against these Turkic people, irrespective of whether they give us $5 a month to enjoy the full benefits of Patreon, which are 2 streams that we do weekly. Isn't that right?
Yeah. Yep.
Except for this week, because we're doing an ad hoc second take of a podcast about, drumroll please, the Centauri Manifesto. Cappy, this is an update episode, and we've gotten it.
Yeah.
So people might remember, I believe it was the 5th episode of the Online Leftist podcast. We did an update, we did a episode about Centaurism and Green.ancen, a odd Canadian woman of Welsh descent, apparently, given the manifesto is riddled with obscure Welsh terminology, who does rage bait prompts saying Marxist-Leninists are evil and other anarchistic tripe of that nature, of which I'm sure you're intimately familiar.
Yeah, no, I mean, I've come across Green before we did the episode on her. I come across her all the time on lives, and I just used to keep scrolling because it's not worth my time to engage with people like that, really.
So I've described her to people as like a phenotypical Phil bro. She presents as like somebody who like thought Destiny was cool at one point.
Yeah. No, yeah, I do think that they are heavy in, well, at least they front like they're heavy into philosophy. I don't know if they actually are. It seems like they're a bit of a liar, so. Yeah,
I think that this manifesto kind of lays that all bare. So we have it here. This is called the Amelwig of the Gwythgyn Centauri. Now, I saw people calling it Queefgyn, but I don't think that's quite right. This is Gwythgyn, apparently.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Yep.
So maybe that's a little bit of a pejorative.
I think it is. I like it.
Oh, I don't know. Cappy, these words are so ridiculous and made up and nonsensical and Lord of the Ringish. I couldn't really discern what was I saw people making fun of this, but I just took it at face value because the manifesto seems as equally as silly as the things people were saying about it.
Yeah, no, it is. It's excuse me. Yeah, it is. It's absolutely ridiculous.
It's kind of like in Star Wars where they make fun of obscure characters by calling them glop shittos, and it's like, okay, is that their name or not? I don't understand what the joke is because that sounds like every character in Star Wars.
Yeah,
it's a situation like that.
It's ridiculous. Also, hold on, we actually need to be on the lookout because well, you know, they had discovered our episode of the podcast months later, and they had made a TikTok about us, and they said that they were going to be looking out for more. So I think they were expecting us to reply, in which case, if they are listening to this, I want to tell them that they're a fucking liar. And that if they have an issue with our criticism of them, they should address the criticism and not slander us as being, you know, quote unquote anti-Landback, because that's fucking nonsense.
So in typical fare, so we also covered on that episode of Online Leftist, episode number 5, Anti-Centauri Action. We also covered their propensity to make up whole cloth slander through free association of terms, like they didn't like Ash of the Collective. So Green.ancen said, okay, Marxist-Leninists are for nation states, a la they're nationalists, and Ash is white, so therefore they are a white nationalist, therefore a reactionary, and they should get the wall. It's like, holy word association. What do you mean? You know, each one of those things means something different. But they don't care because the net effect is slandering people, their incurious, mostly liberal audience, and poisoning the well So for people who haven't approached Ash, they're going to assume that she's a white supremacist or some fucking nonsense. And similarly, in the video that they did about us, where they, again, didn't refute any single thing that we said, the video was like, oh, it's fine, it's funny, or whatever, da-da-da-da-da. And then you scroll down and look at the caption, it says, oh, they're anti-Landback, by the way, which is a whole cloth myth. It's a fabrication.
Yeah. Anybody who watches our live streams, hangs out in my Discord server, they all know that we are not anti-Landback. We are very much into decolonial Marxism, and we've talked about it just a few episodes before the Green.ancen when we talked about apartheid Marxists. You know what I mean? So,
literally taking task to excoriating Marxists who imagine that they can be like Nazbol or nationalist or identitarian with their Marxist-Leninism, and that does not. We're anti-Duginist, anti-Fourth Way, anti-all ethno-states. Doesn't work whatsoever. Those allegations to us are like eggs trying to stick to a Teflon pan. It's not going to work. It's going to slide right off. We see your slander for what it is. However, the mostly incurious liberal people watching Green.ancen, would you say that most people who ascribe or self-identify as anarchists are just liberals?
Yeah, I
like a libertarian.
Yeah, they're radical liberals.
Yeah, and they don't even do anything that's radical. I've never seen them do a kickflip. They don't. I've never seen them hang 10. Nothing radical in that way, and they end up being rearguard with American foreign policy and a lot of the 1950s era and 1990s era and contemporaneous anti-com bullshit that you see liberal State Department people espousing. They magically start harmonizing with all of that. So effectively, they're liberals.
Yeah, all week under my TikToks, I've had anarchists doing the State Department's job for them. Fucking frustrating.
They suck real bad. Okay, so we got this. So to put a finer point on this, so we have it. So we have now, and during that episode 5, we were looking for the mythical Amalwig of the Gwithgain Centauri Manifesto, the Centauri Manifesto, the core document of the principles
the first
handed
version.
down from the heavens. This is apparently the first version.
There's 3 now.
There's 3, and we've okay. So this may require another update. I don't even know. So so let me get through this. So what we did is we did a little op. We had somebody sign up for their Discord, and they went undercover into the Discord and secured this. We also have copies, screen grabs of their Discord roles and rules, and it is pretty much it is funny. I don't want to go too far into that, but they have every political identification that you would imagine from people whose first touch point with politics was Tumblr.
Yeah,
it's a bunch of Tumblr. It's a bunch of Tumblr poli-sci bullshit. So we also have some lives. Little Birdie sent us lives of Dino and Green.ancen on one, where Green.ancen and Dino were sort of misrepresenting where the origins of this is, and we can get into that. Why don't we just go ahead and talk about that real quick? Yeah. So basically, where this document came about, Cappy, is, how would you describe that?
Well,
give you a chance to talk here.
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, according to Green on that live, they had been talking to, indigenous elders in their community, a professor of theirs, I guess.
AKA a professor. They have, in fact, walked that back. That was just a professor they met for the first time while taking a class, who also happens to be, and it's not for years and years, it was, in fact, just 1 year, starting in middle of 2025 is when they met this person.
Yeah. So basically, the way that they framed it was that these elders encouraged them to propagate indigenous modes of governance and socioeconomic systems rather than anarcho-communism, and Green sort of made it out as if they almost signed off on this manifesto, but didn't want to be mentioned in it. However, of course, Dino kind of spilled the beans on that one.
In a subsequent recording, we have another 4-part recording that we have on another live where Dino, crying while denying that she was crying, but obviously choking back tears, felt set upon because people were dragging the details out of her, and it turns out that yes, they had just met. there is no kinship or further deep relationship with these indigenous communities. It is in fact that Anson just took a class that had a professor that was indigenous and said, hey, maybe focus more on North American indigenous systems than anarcho-communism, took it and ran, and then in fact passed this off as if she was tasked with synthesizing that, like she was some white savior or Moses bringing the tablets down from the mountaintop to give to the white people the ancient wisdoms of the indigenous.
They didn't even read this.
They didn't read it. It was not sent to them. They didn't pass it off, and it was not that the professor or the elders felt they should be omitted. They were just omitted, and they didn't sign off on any of this. And from what we've seen from indigenous people in our discords, specifically Yonv and Valk, and if we have time, we can get into that. The nature of these indigenous movements referenced in this document are fallacious. They are ahistorical. They are sort of white person mischaracterizations, And a lot of people in that live were giving it back to Dino and Green.ancen for noble savage tropes and Orientalism. Yeah. And I think, before I give you the forum here, I think that there is no better encapsulation of what this is than the same anarchism you've heard from everywhere before, except with Welsh terminology and while orientalizing Native American cultures.
Yes, absolutely.
That's exactly what this is. Yeah, and what's more galling is they said, remember on the first tape that we had on the May 30th recording that we secured of Green.ancen talking about this, they said, no, I specifically was given permission to talk about this, as if she was an emissary, as if she was a diplomatic representative. And it's just not the case. It's just lies for the sake of seeming official on your little LARP ideology on TikTok.
She's an awful person, and now she is completely abandoned. I just see Dino in lives trying to defend it alone. Green's just letting them get fucking rolled over. You know what I mean? Green's fucked. So
no credibility. And we already knew. So there is the type of thing. So I don't want to do armchair diagnoses here of these people and their weird coupling, Green.ancen being a 20-year-old know-nothing, Dino being I don't even know what she is. 31-year-old person with no traditional, no kind of understanding of the underlying subject matter that she's wading into and sort of using idpol as a justification for why she wants to be an I don't even know what it is. But I don't even fucking know. Okay, so okay. Oh, and there was also a scandal, Cappy, about this. It turns out that when you run this through AI scanners, this thing also turns out to be penned by ChatGPT and Grammarly, apparently.
Yeah, a significant portion of it, at the very least, it seems. I've seen a lot of people complaining about that. And I believe that a screenshot was captured from Anson's Discord server that proved it. They admitted to, using Grammarly to write it. They claimed to make it more accessible for people. However, whether or not that's true, I don't know. It could very well just be ChatGPT generated. They could have just fed it information and gone, hey, write me a manifesto. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I don't know how accessible this needs to be because this is basically bare bones. So let's get into it. Okay, So this is the Amawig of the Gwaithgin Centauri, and we went through here. It's only 10 pages long. We've highlighted some key things. And the first intro here, Centaurism is a collection of non-European, non-colonial anarchist principles, ideology, and theory centered around the core belief that the Gwaithgin, those who net positively contribute to society socially and or economically, are best suited to and fully capable of governing themselves without centralized, superimposed control. So real quick, Gwaithgin is the Welsh nonsense word for this anarchist idea of the proletariat.
Basically, yeah.
So when you hear Gwaithgin, just read proletariat. Okay, and then in the last sentence there, you see the main core tenet of this is basically they want decentralized utopianism, specifically anti-vanguard and anti-centralization.
Yeah, like we've talked about it, but it seems like the primary issue throughout this whole manifesto is centralization itself. But there's a few things about this part, and I've seen other people are criticizing them about it. One, I've seen people who were or are anarchists criticizing them for their, essentially for their definition of anarchism, but also trying to ascertain what it means when they say that the Gwythgen are those who net positively contribute to society socially and or economically. That's very broad, kind of vague. And it doesn't seem like anyone's been able to get it out of them. What does that mean? What does it mean to contribute to society socially, right? That's what they were trying to draw out of Dino in one of the live streams. And, from what I understand, she didn't really have an answer.
And which is kind of puts her in a precarious position because she's like an anti-work advocate or something. I believe that she's like a disabled activist.
Yes.
Type. So this is a sticky issue because previously Green.ancen has gone out on a limb and sort of really criticized the idea of the proletariat as Marxist-Leninism being evil because, they just throw disabled people under the bus. Not understanding Marxist-Leninism, and yet in their own manifesto seemingly swap out the Gwythgen for the proletariat, i.e. the working people. So it's kind of like this kind of doesn't even stick to their own ideology. It's bizarre.
No, and it's been called out for being ableist, which is something that's the reason they don't like Marxism. It's because it's quote unquote ableist, but then they do this, which to be clear is a misunderstanding of Marxism. Absolutely, yeah. The Marxism did not throw disabled people under the bus. That's what capitalism does. Yeah, I would 100% agree. All right, going down here to the Gwything principles here. Centaurism requires that the Gwythgen steward the means of production without private ownership and reject all forms of superimposed governance. Cappy, what does it mean to steward the means of production collectively without a governance? What is the mechanism and structure by which the people, the sum told together, the people decentralized and distributed across the planet as they are, because this is without nation states, municipal borders, town councils, all that would require government and municipalities and committees. You can't have any of that. So how would these people collectively steward the means of production? So it's a good question, and it's one that this doesn't answer, because a problem that we'll continue to run into going through this is them not demonstrating or explaining any of the shit they say. They just say these vague things, and I don't know. I guess we just have to guess, how that would be practically applied in reality. But I know that for Marxist-Leninist, it's quite simple. We do collective ownership of the means of production by centralizing it in the hands of a state. Right, and it's a worker state. It's a state where the broad masses are involved in the political system, either that or cooperative property. I have no idea how they're going to do it. There's no stick figures, there's no graphs, there's no description, there's nothing. Nothing.
Okay.
I'm I'd be curious to know how most of this would work in reality, but there's no explanations.
Well, there's no real historical precedence for any kind of anarchism working, huh?
I mean, I would say that there isn't.
They disagree, though. They have some examples later. We'll save that for this part. Okay, the next part. And so also some people took exception to this one, huh? Revolution is understood as a process through which power is decentralized. I missed that part in my revolutionary theory so far. Revolution is understood Revolution is understood as a process through which power is decentralized, redistributed, and returned to communities and ecosystems. Its aim is not to simply replace existing structures, but to transform the relationships that sustain them. Cappy, I must have missed that memo. Revolution is about decentralization?
Yeah, I mean, revolution can include these things, but I would argue that that's not what revolution is. Historically speaking, a revolution is when one class of people overthrows, the class that's oppressing them, right? The working classes, the toiling masses overthrow the owning class, and then they change the economic system. Now, that could include decentralized power and all of that type of stuff, but generally speaking...
Has it ever historically?
Not really. I mean, there have been, elements of decentralization, but I wouldn't consider proletarian revolution to have ever really been decentralized. I wouldn't consider the Great French Revolution to necessarily be decentralized. I don't. No. I think that you would have an extremely hard time with a we have the historic. Like, we don't have to look any further than history. We've seen them fail over and over again.
You know who has successfully overturned bourgeois and aristocratic systems and then held power? Centralized vanguards.
Yeah.
That's who's done it. And there's a reason why. And so if you're an anarchist here and your butt is puckering and you're taking exception to this and you do want full-on direct democracy, I would urge you to consider this. Let's say you have a town hall and you guys are taking things up and you're voting on them. Okay, 98% of the people that show up are white supremacists, and someone calls for a vote. Okay, a hand vote to see whether black people and Jewish people should be allowed in your town. And then overwhelmingly, 98% of the people raise their hand up and say, no, they shouldn't. What happens to your anarchist principles then if you're relying on pure democracy? This is why you need a committee. You need a party. You need a central authority that has a mandate to exist.
It's just also inefficient. You can't have every single person in a society vote on every single issue. I mean, it would take, think about how long that would take. To just
people with
decide
a childlike, people with a childlike idea of politics think that they would even want that. But true understanders like you and me say, no, I would want the autistic wonks who care about transportation and communication to go deal with that and toil towards no self-gratification to do that. I want to sit around and watch TV. Yeah, I'm smart enough to know that I don't want to be involved in every mission critical system that a country needs.
I think that certain things need to be like a meritocracy almost. I shouldn't be able to vote on like issues regarding like space travel, for instance. I don't know anything about it. Like, my vote would be such an ignorant vote. Why would you know what I mean?
Or things involving like power grids, nuclear power,
Yeah, sure.
Like, you need subject matter expertise in order to effectively weigh in on those things. Which is not to say people couldn't vote on like budgeting or something like I do think I believe in feedback loops so the government can ascertain whether what they're doing is within the will of the people and within the mandate of the people who they represent, for sure.
Yes.
Yeah. I definitely think that. Okay, so let's scroll down to the next thing here. White supremacy is identified as a primary antagonism within modern society. Other forms of oppression, including xenophobia, classism, sexism, and homophobia, are understood as interconnected systems that have developed within and alongside it. Second part of that is not bad. We both believe in intercommunalism and intersectional Marxism, as it were. We do recognize those. However, you took some exception to the verbiage around white supremacy being a primary antagonism.
Yeah, I just didn't really understand what it means because they're essentially borrowing from Marxism here.
Yes.
The language of Marxism, but within dialectics, there is only a single primary or principal contradiction that propels the development trajectory of a thing or a phenomena at a time, and all the other contradictions or antagonisms are sort of they're non-principal. They're all related, but the other ones are almost, in a way, there's probably a better way to say it, but subjugated to that primary contradiction. And so I didn't get this. When they say a primary antagonism, they're insinuating that there's more than one primary antagonism. And, to Marxists, the primary antagonism is capitalism, is the imperialist phase of capitalism.
Is the imperial phase of capitalism specifically. I saw someone did a great video on that saying that, no, the primary antagonism in Cuba is no longer capitalism. They fixed that. However, now it's imperialism, which is one of the later manifestations of capitalism, true. But I would say that for Marxist-Leninists, and this is the main disconnect for left comms, is because they treat it as if they can engage like, oh, China's not communist because they do X, Y, and Z. They have not completely abdicated or supplanted the capitalist social relation, and they don't see that the main antagonism, the main contradiction for the welfare of the people is imperialism, American imperialism. Yes. which
Yeah.
which these countries, whether they're Marxists or not, and whether they have replaced capitalism or not, are almost wholly or what am I trying to say?
Yeah, I mean, the main contradiction in the world right now is one between a handful of oppressing countries, imperialist countries, and the whole rest of the world. That's,
Yes.
you know what I mean? That's the main contradiction. And again, that's the thing about a primary contradiction can change. Something could be a primary contradiction and switch spots with a secondary contradiction. Mao talks about this in his work on contradiction. But yeah, this part kind of threw me off. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and not only that, white supremacy is as the main antagonist. The first, is this performative?
Yeah, I mean, it's doing its best to, which I get it. I want to distance myself from white people and Europeans too, because they fucking suck. But white supremacy is an element of capitalism, and it's a justification for colonialism and imperialism. It's interconnected to capitalism, and so it capitalism creates it, and it may feed back to capitalism. It's not to say either that if we just get rid of capitalism, white supremacy will go away, right? It's something you have to work at. However,
there is a book from Verso, What is Anti-Capitalism and Why is it Anti-Racism? Or what is anti-racism and why is it anti-capitalism? I think, and the central premise of that book is that capitalism and colonialism creates racist systems, and it's not racism that creates colonialism.
Yes.
Anti-Indian racism came as a net effect of sending overseers over there, so as a cognitive patch between what they were doing and to the people they were doing it to, they had to create racist systems as a rationale for their behavior.
Absolutely.
And this, similarly, in America, chattel slavery came about after a certain group of people, black people specifically, were then legally allowable to be bought and sold because of legal distinctions. So the racism and the classism, so you might argue that yes, existing racism and diminished a racial prejudice informed the decision to make black people chattel slaves, but it was codified in a system for money. Mm-hmm. The main antagonism there was the market and then being able to buy and sell people. Yes. That was kind of more important. So I would see white supremacy as a downstream contradiction of capitalism in as much as where the rubber really has met the road in like English colonialism or American chattel slavery, the colonialism or the capitalism came first.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely.
But again, to put this first, this seems like it's a document that's mainly aiming at left liberals.
Well, and no one who seriously, studies politics is going to buy this shit.
Yeah, but you know what I mean, like white supremacy, xenophobia, classism, sexism, homophobia, all of this, they didn't mention colonialism, imperialism, or capitalism.
Yeah. Yeah, it's
why aren't those mentioned?
Yeah, it would have been up there in the front. If I wrote a manifesto, I wouldn't, because who the fuck am I? But you know what I mean.
Yeah. So and then it goes on to a whole system of why Centaurism. It's based on the Alpha Centauri star system, and it seems like sort of like a Cappy. Is this an allegory for poly relationships or what? I don't get what this is. It takes a throuple to get along or something. I don't know. Moving on. Okay, enforcing an arbitrarily determined set of values or a militaristic strategy will only lead to further centralization and thus work against any goals one has in the first place. So again, the main contradiction for Centaurism is centralization.
Yes. Yeah. And I would like to know why they think that I almost feel like this is aimed at Marxist-Leninists, but what about the militaristic strategies of Marxist-Leninists have been arbitrarily determined?
This doesn't make any sense. How are they going to? So they are going about this in a way where we're not even going to try to liberate a territory. We're not even going to try to govern. We're going to set this sufficiently in the future where that's not an issue anymore. And then we're going to say, we turned our swords into plowshares. and we were peace and we're all distributed and there's no need. It's like, good job. This is cope from somebody who doesn't understand that imperialism is the primary contradiction.
Yeah.
That's what this is. You need to defend your territory from colonial overlords who will come take it, subjugate your people, and steal all your natural resources.
Yeah. No, revolutionary movements have only been as militaristic and centralized as they need to be, right? Their enemy is extremely militaristic and extremely centralized, so they have to match that in order to exist. It's not arbitrarily determined.
Yeah. Do you think that the Native American groups that this document lyingly purports to represent, do you think that they would turn to anarchists and say, remember, guys, always be as peaceful as you can and don't fight back and don't militarily organize. It'll all work out for you?
Yeah, probably not.
Probably not, right?
Probably not.
And specifically, we'll get into it. Okay. Going on, the decentralized approach necessitates simultaneous decentralized worldwide revolution. Cappy, this is sort of an anarchistic trot, permanent revolution thing?
It's not even, I wouldn't even give it that, because like Trotsky did not think that the international revolution should be decentralized. You need a base of operations, in order to work from, right? It's just, this almost sounds
stupid. Communizer. This is like communizer lore,
yeah,
right?
Basically. And also, like, good luck. Like,
I wanted to say real quick before we forget, you said that this document seems specifically to be targeting Marxist-Leninists, right? And I do agree. This seems like they took a ChatGPT synopsis of what the Communist Manifesto is and then interpolated and had ChatGPT or Grammarly interpolate decentralization into it, right? That seems like the formula. They take an example of the modes, the rationale for why Marxists need to do what they need to do, take the solution, and then wherever you can, take out vanguard and take out central and put in decentralized. Yeah,
no, absolutely.
It seems like a literal formula. And it's similarly the way that one Gilles Duvet communizer document, the French one from like the early 70s, seems specifically to be in a response to state and revolution, or what is to be done. It's literally a line by line refutation and saying, no, you can't have vanguard. It must all be spontaneous or else it's authoritarian. It's kind of doing the same thing. This is a line-by-line injection prompt. Find out where they said vanguard or collectivization and fix it by interjecting anarchistic bullshit, which is why so much of it reads Marxian, Marxist, but with anarchist outcomes.
Yeah. And this is so goofy because... I mean, what simultaneous revolution? There's not one on the horizon, and like it's just so far removed from reality. It's annoying, but I think that how would you do an international revolution decentralized? That does not seem fucking possible, and it's never. You know what I mean? I don't even know what to say about it. I almost get tripped up on my words because I'm like, what the fuck are they talking about?
This is Tumblr idealism. It's Tumblr politics.
It definitely is. Like, okay, well, we're waiting for the worldwide revolution. In the meantime, the ecosystem is collapsing. Imperialism is ravaging the global south. And it's funny too, because I've asked anarchists, okay, well, where is the anarchist revolution? Is it happening? Right? And they'll say, well, the anarchist revolution is happening every day because you have this community garden and this mutual aid network and you have people and it's like so fucking like childish. It's like, bro, like you are not going to change the world. Like mutual aid's good. Community gardens are cool. That ain't changing the world.
What they're effectively doing, and I've said this before on streams, is they're effectively working as a free janitorial service for capitalism. Don't worry, guys. We're here to bandage your head up once the cops crack it. Okay, and what else? That's it. We're doing it. We are feeding some of the people dispossessed by capitalism. Okay, so what's the revolution? We're just going to continue doing that, and hopefully we can almost feed enough people to supplant some of the hunger under the capitalist system of dispossession. Okay, great. Moving on, it says it cannot be organized via central vanguard, which supposedly operates in the interests of humanity, but must emerge organically. Okay, says who? No precedent. Okay, says who? What? Nice Tumblr idealism. Continuing, this does not mean waiting for a single spark to spread from one nation to another. Instead, the work proceeds in parallel, and they talk about dual power, and they crib a bunch from the Marxist playbook. Under Centaurism, the means of production are held in common and collectively managed rather than controlled by capitalist interests or any state institutions. Okay, so dual power, can you say it briefly how that's basically a Marxist idea that's been cribbed?
They attribute it to Lenin here in this work down below a little bit. And again, in the U.S. here, some of the greatest builders of dual power we have ever seen were the Black Panther Party, a Marxist-Leninist Black nationalist organization, right?
School lunch, a breakfast program.
Absolutely. Yeah. And so they are borrowing that from Marxism. Now, I know anarchists believe in setting up dual power too, but again, I think their idea of dual power is like fucking community gardens and shit, that's fine. But let's not act like that's going to change the world. Can they stop pretending to not be degrowth and prim people? That's what they want. They want a Mad Max Sterner world. Remember that? Brought that one back. They want a world that's effectively Mad Max Sterner, voluntarist, victory gardens, decentralization, and it just doesn't work like that. That is like a 10,000 years in the future. I'm not even expressly mad about that, but there is so much redistribution of wealth. This seems like a very popular idea for a white suburban person who has not really checked their privilege and thinks my neighborhood is fine. In fact, all of my neighbors have big lawns and they could grow gardens. It's like, okay, you realize that a lot of people live in like project housing and don't have like, what are you? No, you're not going to grow enough potatoes to feed the inner city. I'm sorry. You know how
I don't know what you're talking about.
You know how you feed people? You collectivize agriculture.
But that would take centralization.
I understand. It's the most efficient way. You know what I mean? Marxist-Leninists have put an end to the 1,000-year fucking histories of cyclical famines by doing that. So it's like, it works.
Okay, but stopping famine is authoritarian.
Yeah, I know.
And it's anti-nature. You have to be more anprim. Sometimes Mother Nature wants to purge people, and you have to let it.
Yeah, eco-fascism. I think that's kind of funny too. That they don't want Marxist-Leninists in their Discord, but they allow anarcho-primitivists, basically fucking eco-fascists.
They have literally 50 meme ideologies that no one ever has identified as applicable roles that you can select in the Discord. And then, including communizers, by the way, including communizers, and then parentheses, no Marxist-Leninists or other authoritarians allowed. Name the other authoritarians. I don't even think fascists are explicitly mentioned. No. But of course they wouldn't, because they let eco-fash in there.
Yeah.
So I guess fascists are okay. Marxists aren't. This is the, I don't know a better synopsis of the anarchist ethos than that. No Marxist-Leninists, fascists are okay though.
Yeah. That's fucking goofy.
Automation and artificial intelligence currently deployed to descale workers and concentrate wealth would instead be repurposed to eliminate drudgery and expand human freedom. How? Where? By whom?
I mean, based, but, centralization kind of seems like might be a little necessary for that, huh?
And then they crib Marx again to rip out the weeds of power without changing the language that reinforces them, and to leave the roots intact. Now, we had talked previously, this is like a bad summation of a Marx quote. And it also does the thing, it affirms they are anarchists, and that anarchists think that by changing the name of the thing, they have changed the thing itself. Mm-hmm. Yeah. That is this manifesto. The pains of society.
A lot of this.
It's a lot. They're just talking about, look, and when you put a gun to their head and say, okay, how does this look like? All of a sudden you're going to hear a lot of things about committees. Oh, we would have an agrarian committee, and we have this committee, and how do you make sure that these committees are all aligned in purpose? Oh, we will have a greater committee they just describe a party. It's like, the thing is these people just live in their little Tumblr-esque echo chambers. They sit in their little left-com lives, and they talk about idealism and utopianism, and you do not have someone there like me or you to ask them the obvious question, and then what? And then what? And then what? And I could literally talk all of these people into being Marxist-Leninist within a half hour.
It's actually kind of funny because when I was living in an anarchist commune, we had general assemblies. We voted on things. Everyone got a vote. Everyone had a say. We had like the chore list and shit. But the
Chore communism.
Yeah, but the smartest person in this group, the one who was the most experienced, the smartest, literally could like say do this or that and people would do it. And they would do that. And I remember one time in particular, a group of my comrades were sitting in a tent playing with glowing fungus. Like it was night and shit's glowing green. So I looked in there and I thought that's not good. So I approached like the person who was essentially our leader and I'm like, yo, they're in that tent playing with glowing fungus. And he was like, what the fuck? Walks over and is like, stop doing that, like grabs them out of the tent, makes them wash their hands, literally subjugated them to his authority. You know what I mean? So it's like, that it's people will listen to whoever is louder, smarter, you know what I mean?
There is, and they are so, and look, I think a lot of these, especially femme anarchists, are very sensitive to subjugation from cis white men. And they maybe have CPTSD. They have been hurt, abused. They are relegated, dispossessed by society in general. I don't trust cops. I could imagine how much exponentially less I would trust a cop if I knew that the only thing protecting him was that sidearm. You know what I mean? Like if I was 5 foot tall and 120 pounds, I'd be sweating that a lot more. I understand. However, there are some natural hierarchies, and anybody who's ever worked on a class group project or anybody who's actually tried to organize a movement or do anything, you realize there are sort of self-emergent hierarchies that do come from people who are smarter than other people giving good advice, and eventually people turn to them again and say, hey, you, what should we do?
Yeah, absolutely.
That is a naturally occurring thing. Nature does not distribute its gifts evenly. Some people are braver, bolder, smarter, have been through a harder life path and have learned harder lessons and give better advice and say, I actually tried to fight a war like this before and I got washed because they had the higher ground. Mm-hmm. Eventually you have to listen to those people or you're fucked. So I do think that hierarchy is a self-emergent thing, and it is not... It's a tough pill to swallow, but I'm not the smartest guy in the world, Cappy, and I have to subjugate myself to subject matter experts who keep the lights on.
Yeah.
Who keep planes from dropping out of the sky. Like to keep the internet going so I can sit here and make fun of left comms all day. Stuff like that. Agree. Moving on, assuming that people generally operate within their own self-interest, concentrating social, economic, and political power in the hands of a small number of individuals creates conditions where that power is vulnerable to abuse. The common phrase absolute power corrupts absolutely, while an oversimplification reflects a broader concern regarding centralized institutions. So again, they did a lot of work there. Effectively, whatever, continuing on, modern representative democracy. Okay, so here's a core antagonism here in between what they're saying, and this shows you how bereft this is intellectually, academically, and theory-wise. Here's a big glaring issue. It says, quote, modern representative democracy attempts to address this issue through the principle of separation of powers. However, these structures remain contained within the same governing system. Power remains centralized. Individuals who remain in positions of authority and institutional priorities continue to reflect the interests of those who hold power. And yet later on, they name check the Haudenosaunee people and their confederation and their rules, except that the American Constitution was literally cribbed from the Haudenosaunee, and the literal separations of powers that they're talking about are the ones that they name check later as an example of anarchism. Mm-hmm. This is infantile. They don't even, did they know that? They're literally talking about the separation of powers. That is the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. They're saying, however, it was constrained to one government. So would your thing. You are describing a system of government without saying it. This is the Centauri governance. It would be constrained within that one thing. In as much as anything's constrained to anything, this is all under the umbrella of your thing. You're describing the same thing in different words. Anarchists literally think changing the word you use to something is changing that thing.
Absolutely.
But a rose by any other name, Cappy, is still a DSA rose.
Yeah, okay, it's just God, fuck, man. I just have anarchists running through my head from the last week, and there's
you've
so
really
much
been
of
going
that.
through it with them anarchists.
Oh,
huh?
Jesus Christ! It's so fucking stupid, bro. Like they're so fucking stupid.
And is it that they're stupid, or like, for instance, I was thinking of some of these left comms. I won't mention them, but there's some people who default to id poll slander when they can't make a cogent response to anything you said. Not naming it, not name checking anybody.
Yeah.
But people like that. The fuck was I saying? I think to be charitable, I just think that they're 20 years old and they actually haven't delved with any geopolitical realities. All they've done is sort of 50,000 foot view over studies of some systems. They effectively know the ChatGPT summary of political ideologies and have internalized all the Cold War propaganda about the ones that actually work and present a problem to capitalism.
Yeah.
The ones that actually supplant capitalism are the ones they're most afraid of.
No, yeah, they choose what sounds ideal to them rather than what is practical.
Right. Yeah, or something that with a known track record of working, and then believe all of the slander about it because they honestly just don't know better.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they don't, huh?
Continuing systems of hierarchy and exclusion are reinforced where populations are generalized, homogenized, and reduced to the simplified archetypes rather than understood through their distinct lived realities. Isn't this liberal cope? Isn't this literally...
What does that even mean?
That is against... this is against class struggle. This sentence right there, they said this to undermine the whole argument about class struggle. They're like, do not be reduced to an archetype about your class. You're an individual. This is individualism. This is liberal.
Yeah, I get what you mean. I don't know. I was passing that around my head going, what exactly are they trying to say there? You know what I mean?
It doesn't make any sense other than to give ChatGPT a prompt that said, give me an argument against class struggle.
Yeah.
And
well,
then
you notice
it would print out this slop.
With ChatGPT, it says stuff that sounds smart, but it's all very surface level and vague. It doesn't actually have anything to say. It just kind of throws out some flowery language and something that sounds like very philosophical, so profound. And then stuff like that leaves me like, I overthink it. I'm trying to find the profound meaning in it, and I'm like, oh wait, there's none.
You can tell by what's it called, like the serialized, whatever, generalized, homogenized, and reduced to simplified archetypes. You could have said class struggle reduces people into class archetypes. It's not good, and the individual is subsumed under an abstraction. You could say something like, but they can't do that because this is ChatGPT nonsense. So again, so basically what they are doing is suborning themselves and making themselves subjugate to ChatGPT at this point.
Yeah, yeah.
The under the Centauri system, you would be overrun by ChatGPT, aka Sam Altman. So you would have a billionaire dictating what your ChatGPT could say or what you could do in your society would all be parsed by the better interest in censoring of billionaires, by the way. That's what this is. So we know that nothing that ever hurts, which is interesting because again, capitalism, colonialism, and imperialism not mentioned in this.
No, I mean, I think capitalism's mentioned once, but I don't think we've even gotten to that yet.
And then they even talked around class struggle. They're just individuals are dispossessed in capitalism, not classes of people. Because why would you want to tailor an argument to the masses of the dispossessed? No, make it all individual. Why? Because they're fucking liberals. Every anarchist is just a liberal. God damn it.
Yeah.
Anticipated critiques and responses. Let's get through these. From a Marxist-Leninist perspective, the primary critique centers on the rejection of centralized authority in the absence of a vanguard structure. No, we have very, very many more issues than that.
Yeah, I mean, that is an important critique, but there's a hell of a lot more wrong with it than that. I like that that's what they they kind of thought of first. They're like, oh, they're going to criticize us for being decentralized.
That's the criticism I have with anybody who tries to do anything. Is it's impossible to have a movement or an organization, or you're attempting in vain to organize people in a disorganized way. It's not going to work. All right, everybody form a line here. I don't want to. All right, form 2 lines. Well, I want to be over here. Okay, form 3 lines. It's not going to work. You need to be like, no, shut up and get in line. Do you want to eat? This is the line for food. This is the ways. Why are you making it complicated? We're trying to feed you. Get in line.
So here when it says Centaurism prioritizes the development of horizontal structures that align means with ends from the outset, what does that look like? Right? What does that look like? I don't know. Again, this is very vague. Like, what does that mean in reality? Like, how can I imagine that working?
I don't even know.
Are we talking, committees, like communes, like anarchist type communes? Like, I guess that's all I have to say.
This is just in the service of trying to shit on Marxism-Leninism. That's all it is. And you could see I think this is just rage bait for attention, just like all the prompts on their lives. Marxist-Leninists are evil. Prove me wrong. It's just
that's the majority
bait.
of their lives. Like how, when I go live, I'm usually either attacking fucking liberals and capitalism, or I'm trying to educate people on socialist societies. It seems like Green.ancen just would prefer to attack Marxist-Leninists. Well,
that's all left comms and anarchists have, right? Yeah. Because they want to be, because people are like, you sound like a communist. Oh, I'm not. I'm against them. Trust me. It's like, well, they're allergic to having anything work.
Yeah. You don't have to have the hard conversation. Someone could go, oh, a communist. You could go, oh, I'm not that kind. Here's my very idealist, impractical, unfeasible society that sounds great. You know what I mean? And you don't have to answer any of the hard questions.
Moving on here, it says, Centaurism also finds expression in more contemporary movements. The historical Haudenosaunee Confederation, the Autonomous Administration of Rojava, and the Zapatista municipalities of Chiapas each provide examples of decentralized governance rooted in collective decision-making. So we had a thing about this. Towards this end, let's just read this comment from Yanv, a member of, I don't know, do you know what tribe Yanv is from?
Fuck. We have talked about it. I
don't even know. So here, this is from Yanv. He answered this one in particular here. He said, this article is misrepresenting political realities to fit some anarchist bullshit. So, yes, it's true that those particular nations had consensus-based decision-making. And yes, it's true, note the asterisk, that individuals had the level of freedom. And yes, it's also true that, especially up here in North America, that our white chiefs, the chiefs generally running the show during peace, were reliant on their oratory skills to get people moving on projects. However, individual freedoms were based on the agreement of all to contribute what they could. They were, in a way, expected to work or starve, which has been true for basically all of history. In almost all cases, individuals exhibiting genuine laziness or sociopathy were at best told to kick rocks and at worst were outright killed. As for consensus, what they're conveniently leaving out is that the consensus could go out the fucking window in place of a bona fide dictatorship under a red chief in times of war. Also, the Haudenosaunee Confederacy are known imperialists. Look at how they actually spread the quote-unquote Great Law of Peace. There was no consensus there. And finally, while it's true that North American white chiefs and red chiefs were famous for their skills at rhetoric, that again could easily vanish in times of war. Our real strength wasn't the decentralization. We got put on reservations for it. Our actual strength is our political flexibility. That is, we can and did move between quote-unquote communism and quote-unquote dictatorship. And I don't even see those two things as mutually exclusive, but I think that's a rather good point. So the Haudenosaunee that they're talking about here as an anarchist principle had dictatorships, and they were imperialist. They didn't respect the sovereignty of their neighbors around them.
Which none of this is even mentioned. If you're going to borrow some ideas, you should at least qualify it. Like, they make it out, like, look at the way that this is typed. They make it out like it's fucking perfect.
And this was not vetted by anybody in the Haudenosaunee Confederacy. This is none of those tribes signed off on this. That's a myth and a lie. This is just anarchistic Orientalism. This is them trying to make anarchism, which was historically a European white ideology, and trying to parse it through nomenclature of indigenous tribes to make it more palatable to people who were tired of white Europeans telling them how to organize their society effectively.
Yeah.
And as we pointed out, the Haudenosaunee Confederation is basically the Constitution is cribbed from that. The only thing that they change is there was one tribe that was like a spoiler vote that is effectively the vice president in the Senate. I remember that from before. There's a couple little things that the U.S. changed to make it a little bit less democratic and more put your thumb on the scale, as in having the party member of the president being a vote swayer in there. There's a couple little changes, but by and large, it is a cut and paste job. Literally, the Anglos looked at what the Haudenosaunee did and said, this is actually a pretty good compromise. This is how we get these disparate states together under a federalist system. This could actually work. Because it did. It was a working model. They don't bring that up. No. They don't bring that up because it speaks against their point that they are effectively talking about the American model.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And they do this with all their examples are bullshit. The Rojava one straight pisses me off. Like it's first of all, it's not a thing anymore. Danes is integrating into the Syrian state. They lost. That's over. Like the representatives of Rojava are now a part of the Syrian state. Their armies are now a part of the Syrian state. And second of all, while they're sitting here praising how amazing Rojava is, there is no mention of the ethnic oppression of Yazidis, the ethnic oppression of Assyrians, or anything like that. And it's funny because Green.ancen in her lives is always all cops are bad, no exceptions, even cops in socialist society. Yet they have an example where the Asayish is a thing. That's the police. That's the police. And not only that, Rojava has literal concentration camps for ISIS members. And like the worst thing about that is that time and time again, we have found out that they put rape victims, Yazidi rape victims, in the same concentration camp as the members of ISIS who raped them. It's gross shit like that. It's the furthest thing from fucking anarchism.
And they were abducting children and turning them into child soldiers.
Yes, and they admitted that. They were like, we'll stop doing that. And they didn't, by the way. They'd never stopped doing that.
Yeah.
But I know that fucking anarchists don't believe, right? Because anarchists have defended it by going, well, those children wanted to be soldiers. And it's like, it doesn't matter. If some fucking 13-year-old wants to be a soldier, that's not, you can't get consent. Okay, so what next then? What else can you get consent from children for, right?
Yeah, literally, because this whole thing is framed as voluntarism.
Yeah.
It's a voluntarily agreed upon thing that we're all agreeing to. It's like, okay, that society is not going to work out like that. You need a centralized authority to say, no, you can't do this. You have to do this. You have to. That's why the tax system is in America. It's not perfect. But that's effectively what the tax, like, you don't have a choice. It's not voluntary. It's like, hey, this disabled person over here needs some food. I don't want to. That's not how it works. There are people that you feed and people, otherwise they're not a part of our society. You can't voluntarily decide, because people without communal ties to the people who are the most dispossessed will just opt not to do it. It doesn't work. You need a whole systemic way of taking care of people. Mutualism is stupid.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's a dumb idea.
This commits the crime that all anarchists do when they talk about Rojava. They take the theory of Achalan, they take this democratic confederalism, and then they act as if that's the reality. But it's not, because this fucking bullshit that no single group dominates the decision-making process. Okay, so the Assyrians didn't want their schools closed, yet the Kurdish forces closed their schools throughout a whole bunch of different governance. And a lot of these areas where Assyrians once made up the majority before Kurdish folks started moving in and taking their homes and kicking them out. They've gone through villages of Arabs bulldozing their fucking houses. Like, no.
Cappy, no, Cappy, but they say they're anarchistic.
I know. While they're doing all these things.
What you're doing is you're trying to parse the actual objective reality on the ground, and you're comparing it against the flowery verbiage by which they describe themselves. Don't you realize that by them calling their despotic behavior anarchistic, it makes it anarchistic.
Yeah,
and that's a good example of anarchism.
Yeah, I must just be an idiot.
Yeah,
you know?
you have to just call a different thing a different thing.
Yeah,
which is why, I don't know. Anyway, so and then the final example is the Zapatista, and Jan and Valker pointed out that the Zapatistas exist kind of by a bunch of aid given to them by the Mexican government, and they've lost a lot of land, and they're not really a great example. No shade to the Zapatistas. I like the Zapatistas. I'm not mad at them. Yeah. But it's not really a good working example of a thing that can sustain itself.
No, they've been losing land. And another thing, from a Marxist-Leninist perspective, the Zapatistas had failed to pull the broad masses throughout Mexico into this movement to expand it. And because of that, they've only lost more and more land. I mean, again, I hope them the best. The Zapatistas are fucking based. But
it shows the limitation of the decentralized sort of opt-in approach, huh?
Yeah, I mean, there are limits to it. Again, I under Marxist-Leninist governance structures, there are elements of decentralization, but all of these are underneath, or I should say, connected to a centralized governance.
That can protect the territory and keep. See, even all this thing, I wouldn't even be mad at if this was all framed as we need to flip one state and do this in one state and then just protect that border and then have our little fucking mutual aid sandbox on the inside. Okay. Yeah. I don't think it's going to work. I don't think you're going to be able to defend yourself, but at least that would be rational, grounded. Not waiting for some heretofore unmentioned future time where defending yourself isn't going to be necessary. Because communizers do the same thing and left comms do it. They think progress is linear and they make arguments based on spontaneous movement. And they name-checked BLM, Occupy Wall Street, every single color revolution for some reason. They talk about all these things, except none of those worked. Did they? Not a single one of them is an example of a popular movement that flipped a government.
No,
even an Arab Spring, it was a military coup.
Yeah.
What are they talking about? The mass movements in Libya that they were talking about were sponsored by the West and led to the implosion of Libya. And now they have open air slave markets. Where is the good example of populist uprising that we have seen? And they were literally most recently talking about the Syrian protesters and the protesters in Iran against the IRGC. Brother, those are fucking like Israel and CIA color revolution people. Absolutely. Like, I don't know. It's absolutely ridiculous. And my main point is this. They think that the system is unthinking and that the contradictions getting worse are going to preempt people, except that the fascist, colonial, imperialist system is thinking, it is rational, and it is cinching the noose on us. It is doing countervailing things that are counter-revolutionary. Yeah. It is not a passive actor like a boulder that we need to dislodge from a hill and have it roll down and we can work around. It is actively doing ops against revolutionaries all of the time. You cannot just wait. Things are actively getting worse. Things are actively getting more fascist, and their control systems are locking down. You're under complete dragnet surveillance. Try organizing. Well, you are completely encapsulated. It's not going to work.
So two things is kind of ironic because their one example is literally it was a Western funded and backed, organization because the West wanted to overthrow the Ba'ath Party. So I think that's kind of funny because it's like, well, actually the West isn't clamping down on all of the other, it's helping them. Yeah. But outside of that, you brought up Iran, and I want to make this clear too so that people don't misinterpret us. But obviously, there are situations where decentralization are extremely useful, and we're seeing that right now in Iran with their Mosaic, what is it called? The Mosaic defense. They have decentralized the military to some extent in order to survive the attack from Israel and the U.S., and it's worked really well. However,
but that's not the same thing. Those are That's just splitting up into a different organization structure that is still subservient to the IRGC in general.
That's what I was going to say. But because this is an example of how decentralization and elements of it work, but under a centralized system. You know what I mean?
Narco-terrorism too. Al-Qaeda is very effective because of their cell system. Like they did very well. So like, yeah, even for, if you want to do quote unquote, hey, anarchists, you want to do anarcho-terrorism, show me a more successful anarcho-terrorism group. They are top down. Like that's the way, like, I don't know. These people are asinine. I don't even know what to fucking think of them. Cappy, I think that's about it for, we had some, all of this is in Welsh. We didn't really focus on the nomenclature. And I think that's it. So if you guys were curious about what this Centaurism is, I know that we were curious. If we see more updates about this as far as other iterations of this manifesto that have the AI elements removed, if they answer some of the criticisms of this, if they answer some of the lies about this representing indigenous people, if they stop misrepresenting the quote unquote kinship that they had with certain tribes and or permission, quote unquote, that they had to promulgate this thing. And then it turns out Hermod, main backer and co-writer of this thing, started crying on a live when it turned out, yeah, they didn't even send this to anybody to look at. No indigenous person has seen this unless they just joined the Discord and read it. This was not vetted. This was not, there was no permission. The funny thing is
that Dino's like defense for like all of the issues with this was, well, it was just a first draft. We were going to update it. Who the fuck publishes a first draft? Every article I've ever written, I write 2 drafts before I publish. 2 drafts. And before that, I have a whole notepad where I'm trying to organize my thoughts first. That's why I only publish once every few weeks or months, because it takes me a long time to make sure I want to make sure it's perfect. This is fucking goofy.
And above and beyond the infantile Orientalism and everything, it just shows that anarchists just don't have the goods. They do not have an answer. They cannot sustain themselves. They cannot fight back, as it were. This is a very privileged suburban white person's take on what revolution is going to be. It has no historical precedent. And if you give them any type of pushback, they will just make appeals to a future time where they don't have to defend themselves. Yeah. It's asinine. They don't have the goods.
There's nothing profound about this either. All of this stuff in this can be found in schools of anarchism. None of this is profound. None of it at all.
Centaurism is a joke. If you ever want actionable things and you're actually curious about revolution, look to the victors. Look to the USSR, look to China, look to the DPRK, look to Cuba, look to Vietnam, look to Laos. Look to people who are able to continue their existence in the face of overwhelming coalitions with the imperial hegemon against them.
Yeah.
That's who I'm interested in talking about. People, lofty aspirational goals about utopianism are fine. That is not, hey, pat on the head, cool, it's nice to believe in heaven, okay? But we live in a geopolitical reality where you have to have serious organizers, and this is unserious organization. Yeah. This is nominally unorganization. Well, this is the opposite of organization.
Yeah, I mean, it doesn't even take that much thought. If Marx and Engels thought that the failure of the Paris Commune was due to a lack of centralization and authority, how the fuck could we imagine doing a revolution without centralization and authority in a global system of imperialism in the technology age where there are fucking drones and holy shit, it's unfathomable.
It's just not going to work. However, support out there to all the Maoists trying to fucking flip their bourgeois aristocratic governments. Shout out to them. Anybody who's trying to actually flip the government structure and maintain a territory and liberate it. Shout out to all of them, all the proletariat around the world. And we also want to apologize for all these Westoid left comms and anarchists and communizers. Yeah. We apologize for the preponderance of this infantile rhetoric that's coming from our end. We're sorry. Yeah, we're sorry about that. We're trying to police our own a little bit.
For the queefkins,
Yeah, so hey, shout out to the queefkins. All right, Cappy, is there anything else you want to say to these people?
No, I'm good.
Okay. All right. Well, bye.
Bye-bye.